that Roadcaster is lit. I really want to get one of those.
All right, and we are back. Yeah.
Hello.
So you were saying, what were we talking about?
Yeah, just rip terrestrial. It's a shame. I mean, what streaming services these days are fucking I've got so many. Like, I think I spend about at least $100 a month.
Yeah, I've only got Netflix and Disney Plus at the moment. That's
Okay.
it. I got Amazon just to watch The Boys.
And then
That was it. Because the other thing is, when you're spending so much time on something, your standard becomes so high to it and so desensitized. And I feel like I can enjoy TV shows and movies a whole lot more now because I have less time to watch them. If you're someone who's watching movies all the time and TV shows all the time, it's very hard to impress you and all that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm definitely a snob for sure.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I wish I wasn't. I feel like I can't switch my brain off anymore when I watch stuff because I watch so much stuff and I'm at the cinema a lot and and I always rewatch the episodes of Doctor Who before I review them.
Yeah.
So I actually do have to make time to actually sit down and full on engage in the episode. If it's a new episode, I'll write notes as well. So I'm constantly analyzing it.
Yeah. It was like that with me with fights. I had to watch back fights and had to write down
That's
the notes.
right, yeah.
What was the thing I was going to say about Doctor Who was the writing. I remember when it was changing the pacing. Like when I used to watch Doctor Who, it was very happy and even though it was like him fighting aliens and trying to do the right thing. But then I swear when it turned to David Tennant, that's when things got real dark. Like characters were dying and
it got very dark near the end.
One of my favorite episodes of all time was The Waters of Mars.
You are joking.
Yeah.
You know that shit? That is dark. That's exactly what I was just referring to. Yeah, that's the second last episode.
That was like...
Fuck, you know Waters of Mars?
Yeah.
I'm impressed.
Yeah.
That is one of the greatest episodes of Doctor Who.
Because that was the first episode that really, truly scared me.
It's terrifying. It still is terrifying. Yeah. It is fucking terrifying.
That's when that was like a fucking bold move. And another because it was those moments I'm like, this isn't just a kid show. This can be a dark TV show.
It can.
And it gets super dramatic and not as in bad dramatic, but a good kind of dramatic and scared. Like there was that scene where I think it was the aliens are convinced by the waters,
the
right?
Flood,
yeah, and then they're trying to escape, and this guy gets one drop down on his face,
it's
and
terrifying.
then you realize he's fucked.
There's one drop. That episode is so fantastic. Yeah, so the guy who wrote that episode was co-written, but the guy who wrote that, Ross T. Davis, he did David Tennant's era and he did Christopher Eccleston, so the 9th and 10th Doctor. He's coming back, and that was such a huge. That was such a huge win for the show because he's just renowned. Like everyone loves him. Like the work that he did on the show was literally The Wars of Mars is probably my third favorite episode of all time.
Let's talk about that then. If that's your third, what's your second and first? If hopefully I know.
So my first. Here's the thing. Okay, I think the greatest episode of Doctor Who of all time. It's not my. It's just so hard to explain. But I think I've got my favorite, and I got the one that I think is the most well made.
Okay.
So my favorite episode of Doctor Who of all time is from season 1 of the reboot with Christopher Eccleston. It's called The Empty Child and the Doctor Dances with the gas mask.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Fantastic.
I know that one.
So good. Written by Stephen Moffat, who he ran the show from season 5 to 10. That's my favorite episode because it absolutely scared the shit out of me as a child.
Yeah.
Still does, to this day, terrify me.
Are you my mummy?
That's correct.
Oh my god.
Yes, it's absolutely terrifying. And that's when I really fell in love with the show when I was first watching it as a kid when I was maybe 7. But my favorite episode I think is the most well made is in season 9 called Heaven Sent, which is just an episode with pretty much only Peter Capaldi, the 12th Doctor, and he's stuck in a castle on a constant loop. And so that's written again by Stephen Moffat, the guy who wrote Empty Child, Doctor Dances. And it's the score by Murray Gold, directed by Rachel Talalay, who's Rachel Talalay is one of the greatest Doctor Who directors. She's coming back with Russell, even though she didn't even work on Russell's era. This is how good Russell is. He realizes what the fans want. And it's to me, it's written, directed, acted. The score is just so perfect. It's to me, it is the perfect episode of Doctor Who. It's so fucking good. And that's in season 9 of the reboot. So it was really later on with Peter Capaldi's Doctor. Peter Capaldi is my favorite Doctor, actually.
My favorite episode of all time was the Christmas episode of David Tennant. I remember
the first one.
Yeah, where it's him and Carly Malone.
Oh yeah.
And I can't remember what it was called, but they were on that ship.
That's Voyage of the Damned. Yeah.
Yes, that's it.
The Titanic.
How fucking good! I remember watching that as a kid on Christmas night. I loved that episode so much because at the time, how young I was, and I remember because that was one of my best memories was that Christmas.
Yeah,
that Christmas because I had all my family over. And I was in England.
Yeah.
It fucking snowed. I remember as a kid, I was so happy to just have that day with my family. And it was at night. And I just remember sitting down. I was like, this day has been so perfect. Can't get any better.
And then this shit comes on.
Boom.
I love it.
And that's why it's my favorite episode. Because not even that, but just, again, I like it when it had that right amount of comedy. And it had that right amount of action.
And it's quite a dark episode too. Like you said,
and then you find out in the end who the real bad guy was.
Oh god, yeah, it's so good. Yeah, you're right though. That was. I remember when that episode aired, it actually got complaints to the BBC because it was like pretty much everyone dies but 2 people, and like that was a darker episode to air on Christmas, and I think the show can get dark when it wants to, and I think that really helps the show because like. It's a show for kids, but I feel like the kids who grew up with Doctor Who and like when it came back in 2005, those people stayed on now, and kids do still watch it. But I think it also is like that older audience now because it's people who like stuck with it. I've watched the show since it started airing in like the UK, and I've stuck with it, and everyone kind of has, even though the show's been in like a really bad spot the last 5 years, just because. Of the writing and like it just didn't work. It had all the right pieces, but it just couldn't put it together. And it's a shame to see the show in like a bad spot. Some people say it isn't. I personally think it is. So you can see the BBC were like, "Fuck!" Like we need to bring back like David Tennant. We need to bring back a classic writer that people are gonna love. Like get people into the show again because it was like plumbing like nose first.
Yeah, because
needs to be saved.
I believe the moment where it truly hit its peak. Was for me in that towards the end of the David Tennant era. That's what I believe. I mean, personally, I'm not such a huge fan as you are, but the reason why David Tennant was just so good was because he just grew with it as
He's
well.
such a fantastic actor.
Yeah, that's right. And, I probably would get a lot of hate from your audience for saying this, but I always forget his name, but the doctor before David Tennant.
Chris Reckerson.
I actually feel like he was incredibly underrated.
He's so good.
I actually like some episodes with him in it. Yeah, how well he did.
Yeah, he did one season as well.
Like the finale of when he was. He only did one season, didn't he?
He did one season. Yeah, he had like quite. It's kind of like it was never really confirmed what they had a fight over, but he had big career differences with like the BBC, and he left after one season, which is such a shame because I agree he was so great.
He was. It was good because personally, I never really knew what he went on to after that, but him as an actor and some of the episodes that he did as well, like there was that episode where it was about that one Dalek.
Yes, Dalek, yeah.
And then there's that moment where he wants to shoot it, he wants to kill it, and then Rose stops him.
Yeah,
it was Rose.
Yeah. Wow, and you know a lot. Actually.
I know.
I thought you hadn't watched the show.
No, I've watched a lot.
Wow,
I watched every episode from. That doctor, forget what's his name again? Sorry.
Chris Reckerson to David Tennant,
all the way up to the end of Matt Smith.
Matt Smith, okay.
Because for me personally, in England, that was like the thing you watched every Saturday night.
Yeah.
That was why it was so good. So there were definitely some episodes as well that scared the shit out of me, like the Weeping Angels.
Classic.
Fucking hell.
Absolute classic.
Yeah. And then there was that episode. I always forget it. It's cool. It was when David Tennant was with Donna, and it was
is it Library? Science in the Library. Are you going to say the Library episode?
Which one was that?
Everyone loves the Vasha Naradas with the shadows. Everyone loves that episode with the library.
No, not that one. No. I remember that one.
People love. Yeah, that's a fad favorite. Yeah.
I remember that one. Yeah, not that one. The one I remember was where they're, oh God, it was just pure acting as well. But when they're on that fucking train.
Oh, the midnight, of course. That episode's fantastic.
And when he closes and then the driver's actually like
banging. Banging on the side.
There it is.
So good.
It was like a shadow heading towards us. And you never see what it is. You never see it.
That's what's so scary about it. It's fucking great.
And then it gets on the thing. And then there's this camera angle, right? And the director did it so well. There's this camera angle where the doctor's trying to explain something, and then the woman's replicating
talking
in the
background. Yeah.
And then she's just like looking at him. No.
Yeah, it's like possessed. Like,
And then he turns, and then she's looking at him. And then you can kind of see the face in the background so blurry. And I actually remember like watching it. I'm like,
It's
oh my
terrifying.
fucking, that is terrifying.
It's terrifying.
That was what got me hooked because it was that right level of it.
Russell is so good. That episode was written in 2 weeks. The guy is an absolute fucking genius.
Yeah, I got to
How
hand
can you
to
write that in 2 weeks
Yeah.
and it'd be so good?
Yeah.
It's just amazing.
It just fucking scared the shit out of me.
It does. It
Yeah.
does scare the hell out of you. So good.
What was another good one? Christ. There was some. The thing about it as well is that he never made it too complicated. He never made like when it comes to a season of season of a TV show. There's like that main big plot, and every episode it's something new, but it contributes to the main plot. It was one of those true things I could watch where it was something different every episode.
Yeah, and it had a bit of a series arc, but it
it didn't have to have a main plot.
Yeah,
and then the final ending was. That was fun. It was a big conclusion, but it wasn't a big plot that follows you throughout the whole season.
Yeah.
So it's rare to do something like that these days. What was another really good episode I remember that was like
so
bang on was I think it was when the doc I remember
a lot of episodes.
There was a lot, but I remember there was one that just that was so good I almost remembered I wanted to turn it off. But I think it was... Oh, no. The most intense one I remember watching was when the Doctor and Martha are on a spaceship, and the spaceship's heading towards the sun or something, and they've got to go through all these stages.
Yes.
And then the Doctor goes outside and he sees the sun.
42 minutes.
Yeah, that's
42.
the one, yeah.
Yeah.
And like how intense that episode was, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's great, and that's what's so good about the show. And like, there definitely are just like it's an era thing. Like, you can hop on at whatever era you want. It doesn't really like as much as I think it's really good to watch every Doctor. There are people who just don't like certain Doctors, and they will skip an era, and that's what I mean by with next year with the 60th. People can just hop on. I guess that's a bit for people who've never watched the show before. I get it's scary, like what the show's been on for 60 years. I can't just hop on.
Yeah,
I think you can. Like, you can just watch if you want to just watch an era. If you just want to watch a Doctor, like that's fine. Like, you can just hop on. It's got such a huge community, and I do really think there are episodes that are genuinely like really great, like writing, like the ones who just named right there, like Midnight especially. I fucking love like. And I think, Russell, who's coming back, he just really understands the climate of TV at the moment. We're in a very, it's quite competitive. It's you need to get that great show that everyone's talking about. And I really do think that he can come in and just like, do what he did before, but with a much bigger budget now as well. Like when David Tennant was the Doctor, the budget wasn't huge. Like,
and that's what made and the fact they were able to capitalize on that.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I think I don't think it gets enough credit. I think it really does deserve a lot more credit than it gets. And although it's been on for 60 years, I don't think enough people talk about it, and not enough people watch it. If you start it again from the beginning, like, you're in for such a treat. I really do believe that. Yeah. I really do think if you can just watch it, it's on Stan in Australia. You can watch from season 1 of the reboot. You're in for such a treat. It's so great. Yeah. There's no show like it.
Yeah. I think it's just the built up of the classics that we love of it, because if you watch an episode with the Cybermen in it,
love the Cybermen.
Cybermen, and watch an episode with the Daleks in it, you know what's up.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like ideally a lot of people really, really love the episode when I forget his name. It was a finale of the one of the finale of the David Tennant series where Rose came back
with
and
Davros and stuff.
Who?
With Davros.
That's the one, Davros, and
season 4 final.
Yeah, and you actually thought he was going to lose, but he wins,
yes.
and there was the hand.
We love it.
And I remember that Christmas episode when he loses his hand.
Yeah, and it comes back and it grows another Doctor.
Insane. Fuck. That was crazy.
It's great. Like, there is just so much shit that, like, I highly recommend it. Seriously, like, I don't have to force people. Like, I show my girlfriend the odd episode if I'm watching it for the podcast, and I'm like, I really think you should just watch this episode with me. Like, I'll show her a few. She's I wouldn't expect to watch it all with her, but like I think if you want to watch the odd episode, it really is good. I used to like force when I came from the UK, like I was known as like the Doctor Who guy at school. I would give DVDs out, and this is before fucking streaming services. Like you had to actually have the DVDs, and I would like at times I would have like 4 different people that I lent DVDs to.
That's awesome.
And they would watch the seasons and I'll give them the next one. And that's how people would watch it back in the day. And I would try to like convert everyone into a Doctor Who fan. And I met all my friends and like my main group in high school, we all met through Doctor Who. Like every single one of them, we all met through Doctor Who. So I owe a lot to the show. And I love that I have a show about it because like it means so much to me. And like I used to get fucking made fun of so much at school, and I love now that I actually made some success out of it. I never changed who I was, I guess. Like, people fucking would make fun of me. I didn't care. I was like, I love this show.
Yeah.
And to take that negativity and to make a show out of it, I think that's great.
Yeah. What is it about it that you like so much?
I don't know. It's a good question. I think it was just like the time and the place. Like my parents grew up watching it, especially my dad. And when the show like got rebooted in 2005, my parents pretty much just like sat me down and forced me to watch it, and I didn't want to watch it, and I was instantly just hooked. I think I think the Doctor is just a great role model, and I've always looked up to him / her now. I've always looked up to the Doctor as like my hero, and I think instantly it just captured me, and I love it. And I think as like a concept for a show, there's something so exciting about when you're a kid, and like every week there's a new villain and there's a new place, and like you just cared so much about the characters. The character work was so good, at least back in the day, not so much at the moment, but you cared so much about the characters. You were terrified, but also so happy when you see characters come back, and like the Doctor was just so cool, and like there was so much stuff about it that I just loved. It just instantly hooked me. Instantly.
I always felt, you're right. I always felt like some of the best episodes there were for me were just the holiday episodes. I remember there was one, and the finales. For me, another good episode I can just remember off the top of my head was the Easter episode where the Doctor was on his own and they had the girl from Torchwood in it.
So this is when they go with the bus?
Yes. Yeah, I remember that one.
Yes.
And then one of the best finales I remember when they had the
Your Who knowledge is actually really good. Like the fact you even knew like Planet of the Dead's an Easter episode, that shit's, you're on it. Like you actually have a lot of knowledge on it.
Yeah, I know, because it was like my favorite. I had the DVDs myself, so
wow. I don't know why, but I thought you'd never really, or at least like maybe watch the odd episode.
Yeah. I mean, definitely, it's top stuff. Because now I remember one of the best episodes. Another top great episode I remember I watched was fuck, I forget his name. He's a Time Lord himself.
The Master.
The Master.
Yes.
And then he comes back, and it was a massive twist when he opens up the
of
TARDIS,
course,
and he finds out he's the Prime Minister.
Yes, that's great.
And then
so good.
He ages him with the
Sonic,
screwdriver. Yeah. So and then he turns into that little deformed look.
Oh my god.
Fuck. And then I was like, fuck. And then
that shit sends you as a kid. You're like, bro, what the
know.
hell?
And then seasons went by because of how that good it was. And didn't the final episodes of David Tennant have the Master back?
Yeah, the Master came back. So John Sims' Master came back for David Tennant's last episode, and then he came back again in Peter Capaldi's for his last final. So that's really cool. And for Peter Capaldi's era, there was an actress who played the Master. She's called Missy. So it was actually really cool. In the season 10 final, the Master and Missy actually got to meet, almost like a multi-Doctor story. It was like a multi-Master story. So the two actors got to interact with each other. That was really cool. And that was for Capaldi's final. So he came back. And yeah, that's the great thing about Doctor Who is like people can just come back whenever they want. It's a fucking time traveling show. Like people can come back and...
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm actually looking at it, trying to look it up right now.
Yeah, so Johnson came back in season 10, which was really cool. It was out of the blue. It was great. It was just an awesome surprise. Like he's such a great actor as well. Like it was really, really, it's a great episode as well. It's really good for a Doctor final. That's correct. That's it. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, wow. So that's the female Master and then one of the male Masters. Yeah, and they got to interact together, which was,
wow.
Yeah. Again, the great thing about the show is that like you can have different incarnations react with each other. That's so fun.
What I actually really want to watch this episode now. So like, what streaming service do you watch this on?
So it's on Stan at the moment. It hops all over the place. Like it was on Netflix for a little while.
It was, wasn't it?
It was on Netflix for a little bit,
anymore.
and then now it's on Stan, or you can get it on BritBox as well.
I'm gonna have to watch this one because I remember how big and crucial of a villain he was to me, the Master.
Oh man, so good.
Because I actually thought that the way that you kind of respect him.
Yeah, you do. The best villains you kind of do, you know. Yeah.
When it tells its backstory, when he looked into the time vortex, and he constantly hears the sound. The sound of the drums was one of the episodes.
Yes.
Fuck. That was good.
He's just fantastic. Yeah. So, you know, with David Tennant coming back, there are like big rumors if like, you know, other doctors will come back. And I think it's going to happen. Even with David coming back, that's enough to get anyone excited, I think. Because David is. Do you reckon you'll watch that?
I will. 100% I will.
That's
because I didn't watch Doctor Who for a while. And then I watched the episode where it was David Tennant and Matt Smith together.
Cracking.
And is it Tom Baker at the end?
Tom Baker shows up.
Yeah,
briefly.
Tom Baker shows up, and I could tell that he was big, and he's wearing a scarf, and
that was for the 50th anniversary special.
Yeah.
So and now it's been 10 years since that, so it'll be 60 next year. So I think this will be the last time David Tennant will show up in like a big role playing the Doctor. He might. I think we'll always get little like how Tom Baker just randomly showed up. I think we might get little bits and pieces maybe for the 70th or 80th or 100. I reckon they'll get to 100. Like we'll get a brief scene with David maybe, but yeah, I think we will be in for an absolute treat with the 60th. Neil Patrick Harris is playing a villain for
really,
because he's good friends with Russell. He did Russell's season. Russell did a series called It's a Sin, and Neil Patrick Harris is in that. So yeah, they've got some massive. Even like Shooter Gatwa from like Sex Education, he's doing the Barbie movie right now, and he's going to be the Doctor. He's like a massive actor. Like it's going to pull people, and it's actually what you just said, like how you want to watch it again. That's, I think, what a lot of people will be going through. It's like, I haven't watched it for a few years, but, you know, David's back, so I might hop on, and hopefully that makes people stay. I hope it does. I love the show with all my heart. I want it to do so well, so I do think having David back will bring in a lot of people. You know, that's what bringing doctors back does, but yeah.
Yeah, well, what will happen then? Let me ask you this.
I have no idea, actually.
Well, yeah.
I have no idea.
What will happen when it's over? Like,
what, the show?
Yeah.
I feel like it's one of those shows that just, look, it's got to end at some point.
Exactly. Nothing's forever.
But I don't know, actually. I mean, I think, if you personally ask me, I think if Russell didn't come back as the head showrunner, I do think the show would have gone on, like, it's gone on, like, indefinite hiatus before. It was like over 10 years where it didn't air. So I think...
And this was before...
So there was a break between... So Sylvester McCoy was the seventh Doctor, and then Paul McGann played the Doctor for one... It was like a TV movie. He played the Doctor for one movie, and then there was like... I think it was like... I don't think it was 15 years, but it was close to it. And then that's when Christopher Eccleston came in. So that's why it's like the reboot. That's why it went to season 1 again. There's the classic era, and then there's the New Who era. And that's why it started from season 1 again. So it has gone on breaks before. And I seriously do believe, because the show is in a pretty bad spot. Again, that's my opinion. People might disagree, but I think it would have gone on hiatus again if...
Why do you think it's in a bad spot then?
I just think... The head writer, Chris Chibnall, who actually wrote 42, that episode you were talking about with the Sun, he wrote a couple of episodes for David Tennant, and he did a few Matt Smith episodes. I just don't think he was the right choice for head writer. I think he's a good writer, but I just don't think it worked. And I really do think it just came down to the writing. And it's a shame, because I actually think Jodie Whittaker, the first female Doctor, she regenerates this October. I really do feel sorry for her, because I think she's a really great actress. I've watched her in multiple things. She's always been amazing. I just think that, like I said before, I think they had all the right pieces, and I just think it just didn't. I just don't think it worked. I do think the writing was just like... There's a lot of things they did with the story where I'm just like, I don't really understand why they did that. Now that it's ended and like wrapping up, and I know we're in safe hands for next year with the 60th, I can look back on the era as like... I can enjoy it a lot more now for what it was, but there was a time when the show, you could tell the show didn't know where it was going next and who was going to take over, and I seriously do believe he probably would have gone on a little bit of a break. And you know what? If Russell wasn't coming back, I probably would have said it's the best thing for the show, because it's better that than releasing stuff that people are just not really vibing with. Unfortunately, I do feel sorry for Jodie. I think if she had the right writer, I think she could have been one of the best Doctors, but it had pieces missing, and Doctor Who fans, unfortunately, like myself, are fucking picky and nitpicky and are harsh critics. And, you know, we're hard people to please, unfortunately. And I think, I just think it didn't work. There are people who love her era, and I think that's great. I'm so happy for those people. I personally just didn't vibe with it, unfortunately. I wish I did. There's stuff from it I really like. There's just also a lot of stuff I just really didn't like. And I wanted to so badly as well. There are people who go into it just wanting to fucking hate it, even if it's good.
Yeah.
I wasn't like that at all. I really wanted to like it, but I followed it the whole way through. I'll always be, whenever a new episode's out, I'll be up with the crack of dawn to watch it. Always will. It's always going to be my favorite show. But yeah, I kind of just lost faith in the show for a little bit, which was sad because I love it so much. But it just got into a bad place, I think. And it can happen, you know? It can happen.
Yeah. I mean,
have you watched any of Jodie's episodes?
no, that's the thing. I never watched. I stopped watching.
Right after Matt. So you
Right
missed
after
Peter's.
Matt.
You missed Peter's era.
Yeah,
and Jodie's.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just, I feel like I invested so much into it, and I just wanted to leave it there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Hey, fair enough.
Which is fine. I believe is okay. But like, I can't really actually put my finger. I think it's just because my interest changed as a human being. Like, I wasn't as interested in that sort of stuff. Like,
you do start growing up a bit.
Yeah,
Some
I mean,
people
the stuff
do just
that,
leave it.
yeah, because I've always been a big fan of. That's what I mean when I come back to the idea of how many seasons can you watch of something before you get bored of it. And I felt like I've watched all my seasons. I just got bored of it. I had a time limit, and that's a personal thing. That's not a thing on the show.
Maybe one day you can give it a go.
I just like dark. I want you to lie to me. And personally for me, I hate it as well when TV shows and movies get fucking political. I hate it so much.
Right.
Because I've always thought that TV shows and movies were the place you want to go to get away from that kind of stuff, really. Like, I'm sorry, but this is gonna, I mean, I'm not sorry, but I feel like there's a saying in Hollywood right now, go woke, go broke.
Right.
What I mean by that is like, the Doctor Who's an example where you can sort of do it, because I don't care about the idea that they've turned the Doctor a female, they turned the Doctor into a gay man, or I don't care about you bringing in a transgender, because that was a story that you can obviously keep writing. I hate it when it's something that was written a while ago and they try and bring it back, but they have to do it to meet your woke agenda. Now, what I mean by that is, what's a good example? It was like the Ghostbusters. The Ghostbusters were dudes, all dudes, and they didn't have to rewrite it, but they rewrite it as girls, and that movie flopped big time. I hate it when they say, if they're going to rewrite a superhero, it has to be like a transgender, it has to be gay, but I'm like, no, it doesn't. It can, if you want to make a gay superhero or a transgender superhero, then make a gay transgender superhero, make it your own idea. But when you take an idea that was already something original and then you wanted to change it to something else to make your agenda, like it was the argument everyone had about James Bond. James Bond himself was always a man because the writer who invented James Bond was an author who was a dude, and it was always a white dude. And if you want to change it, that's that into something completely different. They wanted to make it a female and all that. I'm like, no. Why?
I guess it's a really interesting topic, and like, you know, it can be really dicey, and people are very quick to like jump down your throat if you have an opinion that doesn't really
come at me. I want that smoke.
Yeah, like, you know, it doesn't really fit, like, I guess the criteria. And it's an interesting topic, and of course, with like, I've spoken to multiple people about like, you know, Jodie and stuff, and you know, multiple people have said to my face, like, I don't agree with the Doctor being a woman, and I've had like men and women say that to me, and it's an interesting topic. And I've always had this stance where like, and it's different with Doctor Who, I guess, because Doctor Who is like, is an alien, and like there's gonna be like, oh wow,
Sorry.
that's a soundbite. I was like, what the fuck was that? Yeah,
cut that out.
That's right. It's an interesting topic. I've always been under the stance that like I do not care about who plays who, and I love representation. I think Doctor Who's a huge show for representation, and I love that. It means so much to so many people, and I think that as long as the casting is right, that is the most important thing to me. Yeah. If it fits the character, that could be whoever that is. That's great as long as it fits the character.
Yeah, it's like that's the thing. Source material. When you're trying to create something, it's never going to it has to stay true to the source material, and you shouldn't have to switch up for your own gender. Like, I'm trying to think of some examples where such a things happen, but they understand you gotta admit it's fucking movies, and Hollywood is so flawed sometimes. Like, they had a go at Bryan Cranston in a movie where he plays as a quadriplegic.
I heard about this, yeah.
Yeah, and the people were mad because they did that. And I'm like, well, why didn't you get a quadriplegic to play a quadriplegic? Because I'm like, because it's called fucking acting. It's not acting.
We're in a weird. I feel like
it's so stupid.
Yeah, it's a hard position to be in these days. I mean, there's even those. I know I follow a comedian, Jack Whitehall, and he played a gay character in that Jungle Cruise movie.
Oh, I didn't watch that.
And I didn't see it either, but yeah, that was a big controversial thing because Jack's straight in real life. Oh, so it was because Disney is also Disney is with
the Buzz Lightyear thing.
There's that as well, yeah. Like they definitely like to. Unfortunately, as well, like I absolutely love representation. I think it's so great, but like I don't like it when like people in like Hollywood and executives and producers they will use it to make headlines to promote the movie. Yeah. There's a lot of times there are people who care about representation. I do genuinely believe there are a lot of people who don't give a fuck about it. They just know it'll make headlines.
Yeah,
which will sell more tickets. Yeah. I guess not for Lightyear. Yeah. That actually flopped.
Yeah,
which is sad, but you know,
it's when it's the original idea. That's the main thing I can tell you as well. Like I read this book called Honeybee by Craig Silvery. It's about a transgender boy.
Okay.
It is fucking phenomenal.
Interesting, okay.
It's a fucking phenomenal book. And I love it so much because it just felt so original. He had created this idea and it was to represent the hardships that transgender people go through.
Yeah.
Especially as children. And I was like learning about it and reading this book. And I remember I love this book so much because he's created something, rather than taking something and then reform it. It didn't feel like it felt like he just created an idea out of air, and that's something that's so hard to do these days. And then, but and I felt like that's why a lot of people respected him as well, and how real he made it, and it really gets you thinking about the situation. So that's the way I'm trying to go with this,
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of another scenario. Like, here's the thing: it only works sometimes when it goes that way. You know what I mean? Can you imagine the outrage if we take like an all-female idea, right? A female-only idea, and then we flipped it on its head and turned it to dudes. Can you imagine if we made a Charlie's Angels, but it was all gay dudes, and it was led by a straight woman? You wouldn't get that these days. That would not fly.
Yeah, it's like, it's just...
Because Charlie's Angels is a woman,
Yeah, it's an interesting, like, conversation to have. Like, I mean, do you, like... With you in, like, the whole... you're in like gyms a lot and, with the workout industry, because like, and again, like, please correct me if you think I'm wrong, but like, I've kind of always looked at that as quite like, like a toxic masculinity sometimes in that kind of like area. Do you feel like it's hard for LGBT, people, community to join gyms and all that? Would you say that's an issue? Like, do you know a lot of like gay people, like transgender people in like the gyms and stuff?
Truth be told, I know a whole bunch of gay people. I'm friends with quite a few gay people. One of my closest friends, Richard Matthias, he's gay himself. He's a photographer.
Yes, yeah.
It's a sticky situation, really, to be honest. But there's two parts to that question. One, personally, this is a personal view of myself, but I hate the term toxic masculinity.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Please. Let's have the convo about it.
I'll explain why.
Yeah.
Because I don't know fully when the term actually came from or coined, but masculinity in itself was never toxic for me. When people talk about, okay, what do you define toxic masculinity? Oh, a bunch of boys talking about girls and thinking they got to do this. I'm like, no, that's just guys being assholes. masculinity to me is something that who a man should be as a person, but it's his qualities as a human being. Masculinity to me is like a firefighter jumping in front of a burning building to save someone. It's a doctor working overtime to save a child or a patient. It's a dad working overtime so he can send his kids to school, or hell, even a dad staying at home. I don't think there's anything wrong with that as well, so we can look after the children as well. Like, it's
right.
And then the fact that they take it and then they feel like, oh, it's crazy because the man has to work or he has to go do all these mad hours so he can't see the kids. And I'm just like, well, someone's got to do it. So why? And if he truly enjoys it and loves it and he gets a lot of benefit, why is it such a bad thing? And here's the other thing I know personally myself, because I do jiu-jitsu and they say, oh, jiu-jitsu is a definition of toxic masculinity. I'm like, well, when shit
Do people say that?
Yeah. And working out.
Why do they say that?
I don't know, because they say it fuels the ego, but I'm like, you don't understand. Like, we need it, and I personally need it. The reason why I do jiu-jitsu so much is because when I've had a session where I've had my ass kicked, it makes me really take a look at myself and stay in touch that you don't know everything. You're not the best in the world, and that's okay, but you're learning at something, and you're willing to put yourself out there. But we got to understand we need masculinity, and at a high level, probably now more than ever, because when we hit survival situations, no one's going to be caring about what pronouns we're using or what safe space is. It's like, no, the men have got to go out and get it fucking done. We got to get it done. We got to go out there. We got to fight. And we got to survive. And it's the man who's been through those parts and he's got the skills and he's got the courage. Those are the men that we're always going to call upon. And I saw a little bit of it when Russia was invading Ukraine. And I saw these articles and these memes of women saying, oh, when you find out that, what's it called? When you find out that the Ukraine's invaded Russia and you revert back to your gender roles, I'm like, there we go. See what I mean? When people get comfortable and they say things like that, and it's so easy for me to say something like this on a podcast. You know, I'm 23 years old. I ain't going out and fighting no wars or anything like that, or conscripted or whatever. So it's so easy to say. But when we come into a survival situation, no one cares about it. And that's the thing what happened with COVID. Do you remember when we got into lockdown, when we got into COVID, nobody gave a shit about the Me Too movement anymore. No one gave a shit about feminism anymore. Everyone was worried, am I going to die? They were facing a real problem. Am I going to feed my kids? Am I going to save my kids? Am I going to look after myself? What do I have to do to protect it? And we called upon the men or the leaders, the main leaders, to save us. And that's why I've been criticized heavily for saying this in the past in the podcast, but I never truly believe that men and women could be 100% equal.
Wow, okay.
I never believe it can be completely 50-50.
Wow, okay.
I believe because we are entirely different in the way that we act, we think, we feel, the way we look. There's different levels to equality. Do I believe in equality of opportunity? 100%. If a woman wants to go see something, fuck it. Let them. Why the hell not? As a man, who am I to judge? But do I feel like we're going to be 50-50 in every field? Absolutely fucking not. I do not think that we're ever going to have 50-50 in terms of nurses. I do not think we're going to have 50-50 in terms of doctors based on the idea of gender. Do I think we're going to have 50-50 in terms of, what's another one? Teachers? No, I do not. And that's why. And then because that comes down to the idea that men and women think differently, whenever you like it or not. It's fucking science. Men and women's brains are different. Our structures are different. Our things we look at are different, and it's not because of like what we're taught through society. No, it's because what's actually in our fucking DNA. And that's it. That's all. And do I feel like that's a bad thing? Fuck no. It's not a bad thing, and it shouldn't be criticized. But if you're trying to it's like you can lead a horse to water, but you can never force it to drink. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like you can lead someone, but you can never really force someone. And if you try and force the world into 50-50, it's just, I don't think it's going to work. There are some, now to rebate that, there are some countries where it's close to 50-50, like in Scandinavian countries, but that's in a population so tiny, you know what I mean? Not in a vast, massive.
Yeah. I guess like from what I've been trying to like do, it's more like, having like open conversations about how we can all do better, I think.
Yeah.
Just having an open conversation about how we can all do better. I get like everyone's going to have their views.
Yeah.
Like, that's your opinion.
Yeah.
I can have a different opinion.
Yeah.
When it comes down to that, I think it's also like maybe just sitting down, having a conversation with each other and being like, okay, you feel that way. This is how I feel.
Yeah.
Maybe we can like work together to have a conversation and better off the world. Like, I find that whole like, the reason I bring up the gym is because like, I've been like wanting to go to the gym for a while, but like, I won't lie, like I'd be very nervous about it. And I'm like, if I feel nervous about it, like how would someone as like a minority feel about it? And I guess like, like that's a conversation to be had. Like I would feel nervous about going to the gym because I'm like nervous about my body, how I will be perceived as like a man. And like, if that's how I feel, I guess like, I've been trying a lot recently to think about how like a transgender person would feel, or how like a gay person would feel in the gym, or how a woman would feel in the gym, I guess. Like just,
Well, entirely then that's up to them, you know what I mean? I mean, because nowadays you're seeing women lifting only spaces in gyms, women only spaces.
Oh, yes.
So, by all means, if it makes you feel comfortable and you're happy with it, that's absolutely fine.
Are you in an open gym with all sexes?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Of course. I've never judged anyone that came to me. I never turned anyone away from wanting to work with me or anything like that. So I don't know. Sometimes I feel like it's just a mental thing for them, because the goal is to better yourself, really, and we're all in the same place. Look, you're going to get assholes in the gym regardless, but it should never ever stop you from wanting to improve yourself.
Right.
And I can't speak for them, because this is what I go back to, the idea of that's them, that's their struggles, and that's what makes them as a person. So, and their life is completely different. So they have different inspirations, and that's related to them. And not everyone's the same. And
you're a PT still?
Yeah, of course.
So you must get people coming in with all different kinds of stories and issues.
Yeah.
So that must be like, I mean, I'm sure there's like there's like also, I guess, like the mental health side of it and also the physical side of it.
Yeah.
And like, the mental is such a huge impact on like the physical. So I'm sure you hear the daily struggles of many people in different boats all the time. Like I'm sure you get to hear a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I get a lot of people from all different walks of life, and I've never worked with someone who's transgender before. I've definitely worked with gay people many times before, and women, and much older women or younger boys, and that's the thing, everyone's got their own problems, everyone's got their own struggles, everyone's got their own demons that they're battling. But the one thing that stayed true to me throughout everything is, this is a harsh reality, but there are so many people in this world, right? Everything that you go through, someone's gone through before. That's just a rare fact. And I have a lot of brutal, honest conversations with myself where I say, Joe, your problems are not unique. You're not special. So that way you can just get through it. And it's a hard thing, and it's a real tearjerker, but that's the truth. That's just a very blunt way you have to look at it, life. And then when you start to realize that if someone's done it before, you can do it yourself. And if you realize that you're not special and you're not unique, and then you got a very limited amount of time on this earth, your problems and then become smaller. And there's one more thing I just want to add to this as well, because if I want to quote one of my heroes, Marcus Aurelius, he said, people suffer more in imagination than they do in reality. We as human beings like to think of scenarios in our heads that we make the situation so much more bigger than it needs to be. But if we do that, we also have the power to shrink a situation. And a lot of it's just all mental. And I'm not like shitting on mental illnesses or anything, because I believe that's a real thing. But the power of the human mind is, if you can make a situation bigger, you can make it smaller. And you just have to find a way to do it. There is no how. You just do it. And that's really the advice I can give at the end of the day, really.
Yeah. I mean, like, you're right. I mean, everyone's different. I guess, like, there's people who you know, I've always believed that, like, I was, you know, born with like anxiety disorder and like depression. That's why I medicate myself. That's why I'm in therapy. And I feel like, you know, that's what I've got to do. And everyone's different. And, you know, I guess like it's and I think like, you know, what you do like as like a job or like as your hobbies, you know, it can like really express the person that you are. And I do think that like, you know, people who are like personal trainers, like, you know, they must have like a certain like, you know, a level-minded head, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
And like you just said then, like that philosophy that you have is different to how I feel about mental health. But I guess it's like, you know, how that's because, you know, you are a PT, you would have that mentality, I guess. And, you know, I guess, you know, people would have that mentality to be personal trainers, something that I could never do.
Yeah.
I'm like I just admit then, I'm scared to go to the gym. I'm sure that's pretty funny to some of your listeners who are probably
it's true. It's okay.
They're probably mostly like fitness, you know, like you into fitness on this show.
Yeah.
You know, like, you know, I would find it scary, you know.
Yeah. It's just that we have to learn to feel the fear and do it anyway. The reason why the reason why I'm okay with dabbling into new things is because I know what it's like to feel scared. It's like when I started comedy, I was shitting myself going up on stage. Whenever I go to a BJJ competition, you know, I get scared. But because I've been scared so many times, I feel so many times, I actually look for it now. I look for that thing that scares me. I look for that thing that's going to make my nerves go off. But at the end of the day, like, have you ever like done something so like when you got nervous doing something and then when you did it, you felt so fucking good by the end?
Yeah, and it's mostly never as bad as you thought it was going to be.
Yeah,
so it's really throwing yourself into those situations.
That's the thing about the human mind. Like that's what I mean. We make this big picture, but once we've actually done it, in the end, we're like, no, that was actually a lot easier than I expected. And it was all up here the whole time.
It's that rare one time when it actually was a lot worse than you thought, and that's what you'll remember as like an example of like why it will go to shit. When reality is a lot of the time it just. That's my problem. My problem is like social situations where I get really fucking anxious about doing like the simplest things. When like really I let it get out of control in my late teens, early 20s, and now it's more just like. I gotta throw myself into this situation. You know, I just gotta throw myself in the situation and do like. I mean, I'm terrified tomorrow about having like, you know, our guests on, Josh, lovely person, you know, and like, you know, but I'm scared. I want it to be a good interview. I want it to be a good show. Like I want them to feel comfortable. You know, like it's that will scare me because like, you know, I want to come here. I was scared. You know, like I want it to be a good episode of your show. I want your fans to be like, hey, that was a good guest. Not fuck, that was boring. I mean, like part of me was like, holy shit, like non-Doctor Who fans will probably be like, what the fuck is this? Yeah, you know, it's scary. You know,
that's all the mental side. That's all just
constantly.
That
voice is always fucking talking. I think
because at the same time, like, who cares what they think? Like, because you're just being yourself.
Yeah,
and when you're being yourself, man, that's just, and you're so comfortable with your own skin, I feel like that's the best thing. I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
And I feel like as human beings, when we judge people for being themselves, I just feel like.
Well, I think it comes down to the conversation again. Like, you know, I'm sure, like, you know, I've said some stuff you wouldn't agree with. Like, you know, maybe I don't agree with everything that, you know, you see with mental health. But no, it's also I think people can be very quick to be like, no, fuck that guy. I think you should be like, hang on a minute, like, why do you disagree with me? Let's have a respectful conversation about why. You're probably never going to change their perspective on stuff, but I think also it's like, you know,
it's not my responsibility to either.
And there you go. I think, and like, you know, it's like, you know, actually instead of, people are so quick these days just to disagree with someone and be like, you know, I can't see where they're coming from. When like, you know, sometimes you've got to just realize, I think, people are trying their best, even if they maybe come across sometimes being maybe a little bit offensive or like jumping the gun a little bit. I do think a lot of time people aren't going out of their way to upset you, and they're trying their best. But it can be very quick to be upset by what someone said. When I've been upset with people recently, I realize I can't change their mind on a lot of stuff, and also I just be like, hey, you know what? They may have said some stuff that upset me, but that one thing they said, they wouldn't have said that a couple of years ago, and that's progress. And I've got to just respect the fact that, you know, that's progress. And they might mean well, but not it might not come across that way, but they might mean well, you know, and
Yeah.
that's a hard thing to understand. And like, yeah, just like, you know, love each other, just get along with each other. It's hard. Life's hard, man.
Yeah.
It's hard, and it's
And when you accept
difficult. It helps to accept that, I think. Yeah,
When
just
you-
realizing that.
I'm going to finish this podcast off by...
Yeah, I thought we've been going for a while. We needed 2 hours.
I know. That's cool. It's cool. I'm going to finish this off by saying one thing. Like, accepting reality is a powerful thing. And accepting a negative experience and accepting life for what it is, it's brutal and it's going to suck, and it's okay to feel down, and that's okay. Because being in touch with a reality rather than being that person who feels like they have to be happy all the time, they have to be not offended ever, it's such an arrogant and it's such a narcissistic way to think. And that's life. And if you accept the way that the world is the way that it is, then you're going to get through it eventually. You shouldn't have to try and change it just to meet your reality, but why you? Of all the billions of people on this earth, what makes you so special and why you? So that's why.
I guess it's up to you to figure out, you know?
Yeah, and that's life. You just figure it out for yourself. Genius.
And then you die.
I think someone said that to me.
That's it. And then you die, and that's it.
Alrighty, so that concludes today's episode, Connor. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, man.
I mean,
Cheers.
that was brilliant.
By the way, this is my first time I've ever been a guest on any show, ever.
What?
Did I not say that?
No.
Yeah, so this is the first time I've ever been a guest on someone's show. So thank you for being. This is a first. So thank you.
Really?
Yeah, I've never been on. I've been meaning to go on people's shows, and sometimes they just never happen, or like, you know, things fall through. But it's the first time I've ever been on.
Well, dude, look, I'm gonna have you back regardless of what the audience thinks or not.
Thank you so
because,
much.
Like I say, it's up to me.
They're like, who the fuck's this Doctor Who guy? Get him off. Don't
right.
bring him back. Thank you for having me, man.
All cool. All right, guys, that is today's episode of the Last Step Podcast. Take care of yourselves, and that is game.
Bye.